Very good, we resume now. And we resume with the last item on the 9:30 agenda, which is number 20, 47 Birch Avenue. On 47 Birch, panel is considering material submitted by the applicant. We have correspondence both in support and in opposition. There are 2 form letters in support signed by owners, occupants of 45 Birch and 29 Gange Avenue. There is correspondence in opposition from 33 Birch, received August 23rd. Plus, received today, we have 2 additional form letters in support signed by the owners of 43 and 48 Birch. Those received on August 27. And on this application, moderator, checking with you, do we have one speaker registered in interest?
Correct. We have Julie Brown on the list as for interest.
And she's on standing by? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's ask the applicant to join us then, please, by stating his name.
Hi, my name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm the agent acting on behalf of 47 Birch Avenue, and I'm with Replacement Design, located at 911 Davenport Road. Hopefully you can hear me a little better this time.
We hear you loud and clear.
Perfect.
Very loudly. Okay, Mike. Mike, you have 5 minutes on this application to present your application to the panel. Please go ahead.
Good, great. So we're seeking relief to the bylaw to create front and rear additions. The variances we are seeking today are in line with similar approvals the committee has made in the past. Our clients have spoken to many of the neighbors, collecting 5 letters of support in total. There was an additional letter that we had submitted last night, but I understand that it might not necessarily be on file for you today, along with some of the others that you had mentioned. Upon designing the addition, it was important for us and the homeowners that we limit the increase to the overall footprint of the building as much as possible. To achieve this, we limited the additions to that of the existing balconies in the front and rear of the property. So what we simply did was fill in existing balconies. If you look at the second floor plan and third floor plan, it'll be a little clearer if you can just scroll down a little bit more. Yeah. So yeah, here you can see how the walls kind of extend past, and then here, the one you're looking at right now, how we filled it in. So we're just extending the GFA in the existing footprint. So the side walls are already there. We're just squaring it off by putting a new front wall to close it off for the front addition and a wall in the rear to close off the rear additions. So there's also a small addition to the side which steps out about 1.5 feet in the center of the building. This is to allow for a new set of stairs running from the basement all the way up to the 3rd floor. And although we are asking for 1.4 floor space index, this is only a difference of 27.54 square meters or 0.21 FSI in relation to the existing condition. We're also well below other approvals on the street, such as 80 Birch that was approved for 1.63 FSI on a similar sized lot. Although there's variances for the sidewall setback, this is a corner lot where our proposed addition will have no adverse effects to any neighboring properties and is simply to serve as use for the stairwell and doesn't create any significant increase to the overall building footprint, since, as I mentioned, all our additions are within the existing footprint already. I'm open to any questions committee members might have, or we'd like to move on to the objector.
Thank you very much. Let's hear from the person who's registered to speak. So we'll ask that person, Julie, to join us by stating your name, please.
Hi, Ms. Brown. If you are unmuted on your end, you can unmute yourself. You can also increase your microphone volume or double check that you have your microphone plugged in so we can hear you. Mr. Chair, I can try giving her a call.
Go ahead, please.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
One moment. Just gonna unmute her. Hi, Julie. Are you able to hear us? Oh, she hung up. Hi, Julie. If you're hearing this, please keep your phone on. We're trying to give you a call there. If you can answer the call. Hi, Julie. Can you, Julie, if you can use your handset and not put us on speaker and speak directly into the handset, we're hearing some background noise.
So, shall I mute you then? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can hear you better. If you have anything playing in the background, you can mute that.
Okay, so I've muted. Okay, so you can hear me.
We hear you fine now. Thanks.
So hello. So I do support the application. My neighbor, I guess, the applicant did speak to my neighbor, and after hearing her input, I do agree with it. My only concern was with construction, but I gather that's another construction issues is not part of this discussion. So I think I could just speak to the owners directly with that, if that helps at all.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, thanks for your patience and hanging on. And yes, construction issues are not under the mandate of the Committee of Adjustment, but if you have concern with them, you can take them to the construction people at the City of Toronto when the time comes. And
Okay,
thank you very much.
great. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye for now. Very good. Back to the applicant. An applicant, there really is nothing to rebut. So, panel members, any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I'll look to panel members then for a motion, please.
I'll move a motion to approve the variances. There are only two, and I want to note that the existing FSI already exceeds what's permitted, and so what, in fact, the actual increase in GFA is quite modest, just under 300 square feet in total. So I think the variances are minor, and I would move approval with no conditions.
Thank you. That is seconded by Mr. Reed. So moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Vote is unanimous to carry the motion to approve the application without condition. And thank you, panel, for that. That completes our 9:30 list of agenda items. The panel will resume. It is now 1:10. We are scheduled to resume at 2 o'clock. I want to give staff and panel members a full hour at this stage. So we will resume at 2:10 p.m. And in the meantime, the panel is in recess. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public gatherings. My name is Bruce Mullock. Panel members this afternoon are Peter Reed, Joanne Hayes, and Nimrod Salomon. This will be a virtual public hearing. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, an online event platform that is being moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When his or her item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Registered participants will be participating by audio only. Now we ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to property, permission to extend or to alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on a particular application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. You may not agree with the decision of the committee. Decisions may be appealed to the Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. Procedure. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if so requested by the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment to you when you are reaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address. And remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised in order to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Individuals either in support of or opposed to the application will then be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after the speaker has finished their presentation. When all the speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will have an opportunity to rebut, but only to those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. So, are there any declarations of interest by either panel or staff members on this afternoon's time slot? Seeing none. I know from discussion we have one request for deferral, and that is on item number 29. For Herbert Avenue. So in just a moment we'll come back to that. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any files to be closed?
No, there are none.
Thank you. Okay. So then on the deferral request, moderator, if we have that applicant for item number 29 with us, we can speak to them now to find out why they would like to defer. And I notice we
Hello?
do have.
Okay.
I'll be right with you.
Can everybody hear me?
Be right with you, Agent, yes. Okay. And be right with you, stand by for a moment, please. And moderator, we do have several speakers registered that are standing by.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. There is one speaker in interest, Allison Buck, who is not there. I can try giving them a call in the meantime.
Okay, we will come to the
Yep.
those that are standing by in just a second. Okay, good afternoon, and Christopher Smith.
Hi, how's it going? Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Christopher, could you explain to the panel, please, why you would like to defer the application?
Unfortunately, it's just a matter of our adjoining neighbors did not get a copy of the plans other than when they were mailed out for the hearing notice. We're unsure as to how this sort of happened. It sort of fell through the cracks, but they have some issues that they need more time. We need more time with them to discuss them with the design, and we'd like to just defer in order to try and work things out.
Okay, then. Thank you for that. I'm now going to check with those registered speakers that are standing by to gauge their opinion on this idea of a deferral. So, moderator, who will be joining us first?
Mr. Chair, the first speaker is Irvin Buck. I will unmute them.
Okay, Erwin, would you join us, please, and state your name?
My name is Erwin Buck, and I am the father of Allison Buck, who today is ill, which is why she's not there.
I beg your pardon, do you mind repeating that?
All right. My name is Erwin Buck. I am the father of Allison Buck, who is also registered, but today she's ill, so I'm standing in on her behalf.
Very good, I understand now, thank you. Just, you may have gathered this already, the applicant has put forward a request to have consideration of the application deferred. Apparently, with neighbor to him did not receive it in time to give it full consideration, and he'd also like more time for consultation with neighbors. So the committee will decide whether we defer or not, but I wanted to ask you your opinion on that. Speaking for Allison, would there be any concern in deferring the application, or would you want to have it heard today?
No, we are in agreement that it would be deferred. We have not had enough time to consider all of the ramifications. We did not see any plans until after the notice came out, and there are a number of issues, some of which are outlined in Allison's letter of objection, and we agree with the deferral.
Thank you very much. That's good information for the panel. Thank you. And moderator, do we have Ian Ward and Irina Minerva standing by?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe I have Ian Ward. I will unmute them.
Very good.
Yes, hello. My name is Ian Ward.
Hi, Ian. If you can just talk up more or speak directly into your mic or increase your microphone volume so we can hear you clearly.
My name is Ian Ward. Hear that?
Yes, we do, Ian. You're a little bit faint, but we do hear you. Ian, you've heard what we're discussing here.
Yes, I have.
There's a request to defer the application made by the applicant in order to allow consultation, better consultation, further consultation with neighbors. How would you feel about that?
I think it would be very advisable because these requests for variations are quite considerable, and I think obviously any better communication with the immediate neighbors would be far better than making a judgment for that time.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's good information also for the panel. Thank you then. I'm going to return now, or go back to my fellow panel members. And panel on number 29 for Herbert Avenue, we have a request to defer. Applicant would like to confer with the neighbors, and two of the neighbors anyway have just indicated they would like that opportunity. It's up to the panel to decide whether to hear it now or defer. I look to the panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. Well, it's unfortunate that there wasn't a reach out to have any discussions with the neighbor in advance of now. Having read the objection letter from the adjoined neighbor, they did state a number of issues that they'd like some clarification on to be able to address whether or not they indeed would ultimately have an objection to the proposal. So I would think that it's appropriate to allow time to have the discussions with those that are objecting and any other neighbors. So I would move a motion to defer.
Is there a second? It is seconded by Mr. Reed. So motion to defer, number 29. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Unanimous vote to carry the motion, and number 29 is deferred to allow for consultation with the neighbors on a more complete basis. We'll now go back to number 21, which is the first item on this time slot. And that is number 226 Crawford Avenue. On 226 Crawford Street, pardon me, not Avenue, Street. On 226 Crawford Street, we have before us applicants' submitted materials plus a support letter from 223 Crawford. Okay, and applicant, here we have one registered speaker standing by, okay. Let's first of all bring on the applicant.
Hello,
Hi there, state your name, please.
Rainer Hoyer, agent for the applicant.
Thank you. And I'm now just going to touch base with the registered speaker to see what their general stance is. So I'll ask Mary Dickey to join us by stating her name, please.
Hello, my name is Mary Dickey. I'm the homeowner at 226 Crawford Street.
Very good. Okay. Mary, can I ask you your interest in this application? Is it in support of the application or in opposition to it?
Well, it's in support. It's my application. It's my house.
Well, it's your house.
I joined. Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize you were the owner, and so that does that does impact the situation. Fine. Okay then. I'm just determining here whether or not we need to have a presentation and trying to get some information for the panel to help them with that choice. So thank you, Mary. Stand by, please. I'm going to go to the panel now. Panel members, would you like a presentation, or should I prefer to go straight to questions? No presentation requested. Any questions? No? Hearing none, I'll look to the panel, please, for a motion. Motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to move a motion to approve the variances. There are three, and this is an existing three-story house, and the proposed addition is quite small, and I believe the variances are minor in nature. So I would move approval with no conditions.
Is there a second? Mr. Reed seconds. It is moved and seconded to approve, no conditions. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion carried unanimously. The application is approved without conditions. And we move on to number 22. On number 22, the panel has before it the applicant's materials, an arborist report, photographs of neighboring properties, correspondence from the agent Lauren Rose. There is correspondence in opposition from 229 Indian Road, 235 Indian Road, 232 Indian Road, 84 Constance Street, 233 Indian Road, 69 Marmaduke Street, 62 Marmaduke Street. And there are presentation materials in opposition from 233 Indian Road. Okay. And we'll now bring in the applicant or the agent. If you join us, please, agent, by stating your name.
Yes, it's Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road. I am having a little bit of connectivity problems, so there may be a time where I can't hear you, but it's working fine right now.
Okay. Right now, we hear you well, and you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Please go ahead.
This is an application for an addition to an existing house. I will point out that it was subject to a pre-circulation by the city. So all the departments of the city, including planning, had a long time to look at this, and there were no comments that came back. I'll take you through the variances. All but one of them is existing. And in talking to the neighbors, I know they find that the variances are not to their liking, but all of them, except for one, is existing, and I would state that their own houses have these same variances. So variance 1, the side yard setbacks, existing, we're not changing that. Maximum permitted building height, we're not changing that. That is the existing height at 10.49. We're not going any higher. We are going for a variance for density, and we're asking for 141%, which is high. However, the existing house is at almost 98%. And within 150 meters of this lot, there are 12 applications that have densities over 100 or 1 times density, the highest being 181. These are the kinds of things that planning looks at when they vet to see if it meets 4 tests of the Planning Act. And I suspect that is why they are on side with the density that we're asking for of 141. Platform main walls, these are all existing. Exterior stairs providing access being 0 from the lot line, that's existing. Maximum permitted height of all exterior walls, that's existing. In fact, we're actually lowering it. And then the maximum length of the dwelling at 18.01. If staff could put up the site plan, please. I'll show you that the house, not to zoom in, is actually less than 17 meters. Can staff zoom in a tiny bit more? So you will see the line where it says 17 meters, where the front setback is. That's where they're measuring the front of the house. If staff can go to my first floor plan, which is way down, as I show the existing house way down, coming up. First floor plan. So you will see there that the house, including the bay window, is only 17 meters. The bylaw allows 17 meters, but the way that the bylaw calculates length is from the required front setback. So technically we need a variance, but it's a technical variance. The house, if you look at the side elevation as well, we do step back the 3rd floor. We've offered privacy screens. We have no problem if the committee wants to make that a condition. Go to the side elevation. You'll see that we do step the house back. There is a balcony, required balcony on the 3rd floor. We have no problem making that smaller. But that's, the extent of my presentation for now. I guess I'll wait to hear what the neighbors have to say and let's rebut. I can answer any questions if you have.
Any questions at this stage? There's one, Mr. Solomon.
Can you explain what is being proposed at the front and whether the enclosed porch, is that counted as part of the length?
So we're actually removing the enclosed porch and making an open porch. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
I can put up the pictures of the street that I sent in. Or we can go on. So our house is in the middle. You can see the glass enclosure. The measurement of height is to the top of the gable. As you'll see, all these other houses have 3rd floors and gables just as high. We are not going any higher than that. So we are taking off that glass enclosure and just putting an open porch like the other neighbors have.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's then go to our registered speakers. And we'll ask the first one to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hello?
Hello,
Oh, okay, it's me. Hi. Can you hear me?
we do hear you well. Please state your name.
My name is Robert Kostelik. I am at 233 Indian Road, the neighbor directly to the north. I am also a registered architect, a principal at AKB Architects. And good afternoon, honorable members of the committee. Thanks for hearing, taking the time to hear my presentation.
You've got 5 minutes, carry on.
Sure. When I saw this notice in the mail, I was honestly shocked at the extreme nature of this development. As other neighbors will attest here today, the developer nor agent did not reach out to anyone in this tight-knit community about their proposal until we saw it in the mail. So that was a bit of a shock at the outset. And in good faith, the neighbor at 229 Indian Road to the south, Craig, and myself reached out to the agent to discuss our concerns. And because this is a pretty extensive development, and we offered our idea of what we thought a reasonable development would be, and which ultimately didn't come to any fruition. So here we are. And I do have a presentation I'd like to support the presentation with. It's I guess the opposition presentation PDF with I believe 12 pages.
Stand by a second
Yeah.
till we bring that up, okay?
Sure. Oh, I see it already. You guys are quick. So here you'll recognize the city location map that we overlaid showing the subject site, showing the addition with a red square. This also shows the neighbors in opposition. At the time I submitted this, I guess 2 more came in. I guess it was 62 Marmaduke, and the neighbor at the back, 69 Marmaduke. So the red dots show where all the opposition is in the community, which is essentially encircling the site and beyond. So there's 7 letters in total after hearing you read it, and and we've also researched the immediate area around 231 for the FSIs recorded in the City of Toronto database, updated I think August 2021, to provide a real context to the properties in the vicinity to clearly show that this developer's proposal is just way off base, we feel, in the neighborhood fabric. So you can see the numbers, the 84s, 81s. We've noted where the multi-units are on the street, the 3 at the bottom, and you'll see some anomalies that you can register, but you can see that it's a lot that's full lot coverage. It's a multi-unit, and it looks like it was a historical anomaly where they may have severed the lot to get that 110% little house in the 215. But I just took an immediate context, which we think is impactful, rather than reaching out and cherry picking some sites in the whole neighborhood. So this is immediately what the densities are. So you can see 141 is just really out there. 231, as mentioned by the agent, is currently at 97, or he says almost 98, and have requested 141% FSI, which is not a minor variance in our view. This is a major variance. The examples on the block that have a higher density, as I mentioned, at the corner, 223 Indian, is an outlier in that sense. We have shown the extent also where the back wall of the addition falls in relation to the rest of the adjacent homes. And you can clearly see how disproportionate it is, leaving only a sliver of outdoor amenity space. And if you want to move to page 2, since you've got a sense of the context, this is just the data I was able to glean and recently supplied information. So in orange, it tells you the FSIs for those specified homes. And I didn't pull them out of a hat. I know the agent had sort of specified a certain list of densities in his letter, but without a context or knowing exactly where they are, it's just a list of numbers to us anyway. And let's see, the agent, okay, what else? I guess on page 3, please, we can move on. That's just a chart. And also, when we were looking at the survey, we discovered that there wasn't a signature of a licensed surveyor on the document, just a bunch of X's. So I'm not sure if this is just a draft. So I'm not sure how we are supposed to validate the dimensions and the values that the zoning review is based upon, because usually when we submit our document, survey should be sealed or at least signed by a surveyor to make it valid. So that's just a question out there. Maybe it's a procedural thing, but it sort of puts into question what if these variances are based on legitimate information, in our opinion. And we can move to page 4. And we also wanted to reference the original zoning notice dated May 14, 2021. It refers to the fact that it's clearly noted that the property was subject or is subject to zoning bylaw 438-86. So I'm not sure, I haven't done a presentation in a while, but when reviewing the public notice, there's no indication that there are any variances under the old bylaw. So this is peculiar that there were not any bylaws triggered for even the density at 141. So I'm not sure, maybe I'm misinformed, but I don't know why that wouldn't be included.
I'll ask you to make your final comments, please. Okay,
So you can sort of see, if you move down to the next page, page 5, this is what you see. The orange is what's being proposed. Dashed line shows the back of the existing. And if you go down to, now these are sort of fast views just to see the scale and context of what we have here in adjacent homes. So that's a view from the south, that's Craig's home at 229. And you can sort of see the wings of the roof sort of raise up, the main walls, side walls go higher than the adjacent homes, and then you have this big overlook balcony, and there's a big cherry tree there as well. So you can move to next page 7. That's without the tree to give you a bit more context of sort of the mass and the sort of impact of the volume of the zoning.
Your time is now up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see if we have questions for you. Panel members, Mr. Solomon, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is what is there any specific part of the addition that you have concerns with, or is it both the rear expansion as well as the third story?
Yeah, I think what you'll hear from the neighbors, the extent of how far it goes into the site, with the truncated site, which is shorter than most on the block, obviously how much it eats into space, and then the extent, I think it's 9 feet past my back of wall and about 15 past the south 229. So that's a really big impact, where if you didn't see the other images at the back, but you have it on file, that they're quite impactful with how much of a wall is shown at the back. And then overlook issues obviously not just for myself in the south neighbor, but 69 Marmaduke as well is impacted directly with looking right into the whole backyard and their back of house as well. And shading, I mean, that's a whole sort of obvious one, is to, since we're on the north, we get impacted by the massive wall that's going to shade what yard we have left. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions for this speaker? No? Okay, speaker, thank you. Let's move on to the next registered speaker and ask them to join us by stating their name. And I'll just remind all the speakers too that you can really help the panel by telling us what the impact is on your enjoyment of your property in your neighborhood through the proposed applications. How it impacts you is what we're listening for and trying to process. Okay.
Hi,
Next.
Mr. Westwood. I have unmuted you if you're able to speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hear you fine.
Okay.
Yes, we hear you fine. Please state your name.
Yes, my name is Larry Westwood.
Very good. You have 5 minutes to address your concerns to the panel. Go ahead.
Well, I won't need the 5 minutes. However, I will agree with my neighbor at 233. We are at 235, and of course, being on the north side of that property, we have the same concerns about shading, and of course, the balcony is a concern with respect to privacy. The other variances are, we don't think they're minor in nature. When we look at the footprint of the property and the variances that the developer wants to go ahead with, in each of these cases, with respect to height, depth, building depth, all of these are not minor variances from our way of thinking. And it has an impact not only on the near neighbors, but in the neighborhood in general, where we might find just an overdevelopment of properties. And it's basically a very historical, well, we consider it to be historical. We've been here since 1987, and we bought in for the historical nature of the properties and how nice they were. And we just don't want to see these kinds of changes that impact the neighborhood in general, and certainly the close neighbors to 231. 231. So that's all basically I have to mention.
Thank you for that.
And I would object to the variances.
Panel members, questions for this speaker? Thank you. All right. And we'll now go on to the next registered speaker and invite them to join us by stating their name.
Hi, Sylvain Pouliot. You are unmuted and able to speak. Sylvain,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, we do hear you. State your name, please.
My name is Sylvie Pouliot, and I live at 229 Indian Road.
Very good. Please. Go ahead. You've got 5 minutes.
My husband and I, we share exactly the same concerns. We're first house to the south of what's being proposed. We feel, and maybe my husband can go next because he may have more to add to this, but we feel that the view from our house, suddenly we're going to be a bit set back from this construction, and we're just going to have a massive wall on our side, and there's going to be a huge balcony at the top that will impact the privacy of our backyard and all the other backyards that are adjacent to this property. So we object to the size of this construction, this renovation, and the impact that it has to the whole neighborhood. So I'm not going to repeat what was said already. We just support what's been said from the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just let me ask you, so you're the house directly south?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're going to see a massive wall when you're standing in your backyard, when you look north?
That's my understanding, yes.
Questions for this speaker?
And I'm going to see a big deck as well.
Right.
From the second floor deck.
Okay. Panel members, questions? No? Okay. And I think we have one more registered speaker.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Thomas Rickard. There are two phone numbers with 416705, so I have to kind of figure out if that's Thomas. Just bear with me. Hi, I have unmuted the call-in user for 416705. Is this Thomas Rickard? You are unmuted.
Marmaduke Street. Hello? I heard some beats there.
Hi, Thomas. Is this Thomas Rickard?
It is, yes.
Good afternoon, Thomas.
Hey, good afternoon. Thomas Rickard, and I live at 69 Marmaduke Street. And my property, I guess our backyards touch the applicant's yard and my yard. And I think that overall that the applicant, basically they're just making a project that's much too large. And while they might be talking about a floor space index equal to 1.41 and see that as not too much, most in the area are about 0.69, or some of them go up to 100, but not what they're asking for. And how I would be impacted in my backyards are already fairly small. I think mine might be 25 feet by 30 feet. And this property, the applicant's property, reaching out into their backyard, which would be on the west side of me, will cut out a lot of sun for me. I mean, because they are pushing up the third-story wall, right? Maintaining a peak, but pushing up the walls on either side, plus building out into the backyard. So there will be very little green space left in their yard, and they'll be looking right down on me and cutting out the westerly sun. There's also, and I mentioned this in my letter, there's a beautiful 60-year-old cherry tree there. And even though, you know, they might say this will be okay, there's no way that this tree is going to survive, even if they don't cut it. They've got it. They have to trim it to be able to build, first of all. And I just don't see anything other than dry grass surviving in a small backyard like that once this is complete. I also strongly object to the deck that's high up, because this will be looking right down into my yards. Be very, very visible. I guess those are my main objections. It cuts down on my sunlight and visually really impacts using my yard. I think that's my note.
Well, thank you. Let me ask you about that. You mentioned the tree. I take it the tree is on the property of the subject property or on your property? The tree that's going to be...
It's on the subject property, not my property.
Oh, okay.
And though it sort of leans, you know, it's a big tree, so it does provide green between us, a visual barrier, and of course it also provides cherries. It's a huge cherry tree.
Okay.
Not the kind you see just in cherry farms. It's something bigger than that.
I get it. Okay, thank you. Panel members, any questions here? The speaker? Okay. With that, we have heard from all of those who were registered to speak in opposition, and we can go back now to the applicant and ask the applicant to comment on these issues. There is general concern, as I've listened to the speakers, about the FSI at 1.41 being simply not in keeping with the immediate properties, or in fact with even properties in the general area. Not in keeping with the character of those properties due to its massing with that FSI. And then there is specific concern by these adjacent properties with respect to shading overlook from a deck that'll be quite high. The property on Marmaduke already has a small backyard. Now there's going to be a large wall that faces into that backyard with a deck on top of it, so it sort of exacerbates the issue in that person's eyes. Yeah, so general feeling out of character with the neighborhood, and specifically causing adjacent properties issues with respect to overlook and shading. So applicant, you have 5 minutes to rebut.
Sure, thank you. If you can put up the Rob's visual aids that he showed you of the area and the densities. I'll start out by saying that I don't know where he got these densities from, but it's a city data map. They are not to be relied on, but let's rely on them because he did. If staff can put that map up. So you're probably all aware of OMB decision that says the immediate block holds more importance when you're looking at densities and, well, variances. Well, the argument's been made for me on the corner. You're at 215% and 110% beside every one of these houses except number 65, which is on a very big lot. If these densities are right, proves my point that planning has vetted this and knows all this, and planning only works on precedents. I know your committee adjustment doesn't work on precedents, but that is why planning supports this application. And I agree the impacts that were listed were about overlook. We're no problem putting up a privacy screen on either side. As for number 69, who's worried about overlook, he overlooks my client's property, and there will be no impact of shadow. I know you guys don't care about shadow, sun, overlook, all that stuff. It's not something Committee of Adjustment looks at, but this cherry tree is going to create shadow for him and shield him from the views that he's worried about. There will be no problem of that. The heights, if you can put up the 3D from the rear that was shown, I actually asked the neighbor who prepared this, do you know what your density is or how long your house is? He said, I don't know that information. So I'm not sure where he got it all of a sudden or how accurate these drawings are. But as you can see from this drawing, the two adjacent houses appear to be taller than what we're proposing. I go back to the fact that every single one of these variances, including density, is already existing except for the length of the dwelling. I'm allowed to build a house that's 17 meters long and up to 10 meters in height. That shows that the as of right application would provide the neighbor who complained about seeing a wall that's an as of right. The fact that I'm stepping back the third floor, in spite of density, whatever it would be, I could push all the density to one side, is actually an improvement. So privacy we can take care of. Views I don't think are a real issue. I think that the real issue that I've heard is density. No one can tell me the density of, the impact of density. And all of these houses are over the required density. These last few lots are smaller, but they're all over height. I think under the way you have to look at it is this block and the way planning looked at it. I think this does meet the four tests of the Planning Act. We are keeping the house. They talked about the heritage quality of the neighborhood. It's not a heritage neighborhood. But that's one of the reasons we're keeping the house. It is an attractive house. We're not throwing it into landfill. We're doing an addition to an existing house. So we're keeping that character. I do think this meets the four tests of the Planning Act and worthy of your approval.
Okay, panel members, questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to just talk about the FSI for a moment. Mr. Rose, you talked about that some of this, higher levels exist. Can you just give us geographically some examples?
I can give you all the addresses if you wish. I just, I don't work on precedent, so I don't like to bring it up unless someone else does.
Well, you raised it as in support of why you believe an FSI of 1.41 is okay. So I'm just trying to understand a little more about why that's okay.
So I can list you the addresses. As I said, in 150 meters from this site, there are 12 addresses that are over 1 times density. And although you guys don't work on precedent, planning does, and that's why they've supported this. I can give you the address.
Anything close to 1.41?
Yeah, so 21 Columbus Avenue is 164, 402 Roncesvalles is 156, 128 Grenadier 136, 1A Howard Park 181, 79 my writing's bad, 154, and there's a plenty more that are 100 to 115, 136, and I didn't know about the 235 that's on the corner or the 110. I'm not sure you can rely on all those stats, but they provided those stats right on the same block as 235.
Yeah, but you
That's a different kind of housing. That's not what's looked at here. They're looking at densities in the area, and you can't discount that 235.
yes, but it's that is a corner lot. That's a corner lot. You're comparing. Is it fair to make that comparison of a corner lot with a lot in the middle of the block?
Absolutely, it's fair. So if staff could put up that site plan again, you have a second. It talked about green space. We have no variance for green space. We have no variance for rear yard setback. So if you look at the other corner, 235, the gentleman who complained that we don't have any amenity space, we have more amenity space than he has. He's got a detached garage. How much amenity space does he have? 223 has no amenity space. 86 Constance has no amenities, very little, less than we're asking for. This is what planning looks at. And so to complain that we don't have any amenity space when we have more than they do, that sort of, like, you know, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. It's very comparable to theirs. Their garage doesn't count in gross floor area, and that's the bylaw, but it does take up space on the property, and it is density. So I think corner lot are not, I don't know why planning would consider a corner lot unique.
Any further questions of the applicant? No. In that case, then.
Mr. Chair, through you, I've gotten correspondence from Craig Coleman, who had registered with Sylvie Pouliot,
Yes.
that he
He's ready
wishes
to
to
speak?
speak. He
Good.
wishes to speak.
That's very good, okay. We have one more speaker then who was is registered on the list that is now connected. So let's bring in that final speaker.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, thank you for the time. Craig Coleman. I live with Sylvie. We're partners at 229 Indian Road, directly south. So, I will be quick. A lot of this has been covered. Overreaching comment. We're not adverse to renovation or an addition, but we are not happy with the size and scale of this renovation and addition. Our major objection is really over the size of the rear yard addition, both from a floor area and a height perspective. And what this really results is, it really pushes the whole house into the backyard. And at 1.4 times FSI, it has significant impacts. So I look at overlook and privacy. And for many of the neighbors, that is a big issue. And specific to us, and again, based on how deep this addition goes into the backyard, and if you look at Rob's presentation on slides 6, 7, and 10, if you're standing on that balcony, on that second floor, and you stand up and you turn your head, you can see directly into our second floor bedroom. You can see directly into our third floor bathroom. Again, that's based on the scale of the development. So we're talking about 1.4 times, so we're the house on the south. It doesn't depict, if you go back to tab 6, it doesn't show windows, but there's windows all across the back of our house, which are bedrooms on the second floor and straight into the third floor bathroom. That is a big concern for us. Lack of privacy. Also, again, based on the scale, because it pushes so much into the backyard, and with the size of the balcony, we all value our outdoor space. We have so little of it in the city. We spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of money upgrading our backyard. We probably use it 11 months a year. And now I've got this massive big brother, quite frankly, looking over me. I'm not sure why that balcony needs to be 190 square feet. You can have 15 to 20 people up there looking at everybody's backyard. There's no privacy. Another concern I have, again, we've talked about it, is the height of the rear exterior main walls, from allowed at 7.5 going to 10.3. I've got this massive now wall structure that I'm staring into from my backyard. I'm not sure why it needs to be so high. And one thing that I'd like to touch on, I'm just going to finish. We had no consultation whatsoever from the owner or the architect. The first time we heard about this was when the Committee of Adjustment notice showed up. We digested it, we looked at it, and we, the neighborhood, reached out to the owner, which I found personally a bit unusual. We reached out to him to express our concerns and actually propose what we thought to be an acceptable addition. He dismissed it. You know, they talk about the privacy screening. Interesting concept. You stand up, you look over the privacy screening. So I'm not sure what the privacy screening really does. Quite frankly, it's a nice gesture, but it does nothing with respect to privacy, visibility into bedrooms and bathrooms. That's, you know, thank you for the time. I know I was registered to speak earlier and I sent a note, so I'm sorry I'm coming in late in the process.
Thank you very much. Let's see if there are any questions for you, panel members. No. Nope. Thank you very much.
Should I get to speak about that?
Yeah, you have a chance to rebut that. Yes, of course, agent. Go ahead.
So, again, height is existing, and I'll attest that his house is taller or has a height variance as well. The length, I'm allowed to build a house that's 17 meters long. I'm not more than 17 meters. It just, the way it's calculated from the front yard setback is, and I would attest that because the angle of the street, maybe his house and the house on the other side is also longer than 17 meters. I could build a 2-story house with a roof that looks similar, that doesn't have density in the roof, and my density would come down and maybe meet a number that my neighbors have. This is an existing 3-story house, so it's already at 97 or whatever %. So, you know, the fact that they're looking at a roof, a wall, whatever, you're allowed to have that. We did offer to pull in the balcony from the sides and a 5-foot privacy screen. Nobody's eyes are taller than 5 feet. We offered that. I offered to pull it in 3-4 feet from each side. They didn't want that. You know, he's got neighbors, the neighbor at 69 around the corner. He could look into your house. My client has no interest in using the balcony for parties or peering in to his neighbors, but, you know, this...
Quick question for you. Question for the agent. A couple of the speakers have referred to a proposal they made to the owner as to what they felt would be acceptable. Were you party to seeing what that proposal looked like?
Absolutely. So they offered that we should make the house no deeper than their house. I'm sorry, I don't need help designing houses. The planning department vetted this, and they deem that it fits the 4 tests of the Planning Act. That's why there's no comments. So, you know, sure, you don't want your neighbor's house to be longer than yours, but that's not how city works. You know, I'm entitled to build a house 17 meters long. I see this all the time. Well, I don't want your house to be deeper than mine. Well, you know, but your house sticks out in the front more than mine, and you couldn't tell me if your house was 17 meters long. I asked all these questions. So when neighbors try to redesign houses for us and start out with, I don't want you to be any deeper than mine, yes, I dismiss it, because I'm allowed to be deeper than yours. And whoever buys your house after you might want to put an addition on.
Okay.
The last thing is, people keep talking about green space. There is no variance here for green space.
Yeah, you've already mentioned that we're repeating there. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Mention it again. So there's no variance for green space.
Applicant? Yeah, applicant. We're going to now take the application into committee for discussion and moving toward a motion. So we are now in committee. Panel members, you've heard from some speakers and from the applicant. Who would like to begin with some comment on this application, please? Mr. Salomon?
I can start. Just some comments. I mean, I believe that the size, the massing of a development on the lot is regulated by the zoning bylaw, not just by one regulation, but a series of regulations, and that includes setbacks, building length, height, FSI, and so I'm not quite sure I agree with the applicant that he's allowed to build as of right the building length into the rear yard unless he reduces other aspects of the height and massing so that it fits with the other regulations of the zoning. So I'm not convinced that the 1.41 proposed FSI is compatible with what is within the surrounding area. The only evidence I have seen is what is being presented by the adjacent neighbor. The applicant has not provided any details, no map with all the other lots to show why 1.41 is appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
I agree with Nimrod's comments, and I mean, we did see the corner property with a very high FSI, and I found the agent's comments a bit disingenuous, I think, when saying that corner lots are not different than interior lots. I think fundamentally they are, just because of their physical context. They don't have a neighbor on one side. That's a fundamentally different context. I think the variances being requested, apart from the FSI, are quite small. But I think the rear wall height is the most impactful one. And in terms of overlook and just presence in the rear yard, and I don't think this application as a whole really respects the pattern of development in the neighborhood, so I won't be supporting it.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Go ahead, Ms. Hayes.
I mirror many of the comments of my colleagues. You know, I can appreciate, you know, the submissions that it's already a 3-story house and a lot of the massing is reconfiguring the existing 3rd floor, not just the pushback out. I recognize that the argument made in the submissions with respect to how the length variance was calculated, but I think that the wall height and the FSI creates a structure. Although the 3rd floor is pulled back, I still believe that it is too much house for the lot and the impacts given the immediate character of the neighborhood, and I can't support the application.
Thank you very much. For my part, the 1.41, with respect to its immediately adjacent neighboring properties, it's too much to ask. So it's not acceptable, and I think it's created to some extent that large FSI is created by the fact that the rear wall going straight up starts to enclose a great deal of interior space, and to a significant height. So I won't be supporting it either. I will look then to panel for a motion on the application, please. Mr.
Sure,
Sell?
I'll put forward a motion to refuse the variances.
To refuse the application, seconded by Mr. Reed. So it is moved and seconded to refuse the application. All those in favor, show of hands, please. The vote is unanimous to carry the motion and to refuse the application. And panel moves along to the next application. '56 Spruce Street, item number 23. On item number 23, panel has before it the material submitted by the applicant, some previous COA decisions which affect the subject property. There is email correspondence from Heritage Preservation. There's a staff report from Urban Forestry. correspondence both in support and in opposition. 5 form letters in support, signed by owners at 60 Spruce, plus 41, 50, 51, and 53 Spruce. And in opposition from 58 Spruce and 322 Sackville. On this one, though, is it true, moderator, that there is just the agent? Okay.
Mr. Chair, there's also material on the supplementary list.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer. There's also one received just as recently as 27th of August. There is correspondence in opposition from Mary Har at 340 Sackville. So on this application, let's ask the agent to join us by stating your name, please.
Hello, my name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm here acting on behalf of 56 Spruce, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road. Promise this is the last one today.
Thank you very much. Okay. Panel members, on number 23, would you like to hear a presentation? Do you have questions to address to Mr. De Oliveira? Mr. Salomon, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have questions. I'd like to get some data information. What is the existing FSI and what is the GFA of the proposed addition?
Yes, so the existing FSI is 1.09. That's 209.46 square meters. And our proposal is 1.37 FSI and is 258.48 square meters. So that's roughly 49.02 meters more than the existing.
So sorry, so the addition was 49 square meters in size?
Yes, it's an additional area of 49.02 square meters from the existing.
And if I may, I'm sorry to ask you to repeat. Would you mind repeating the existing FSI is?
The existing FSI is 1.09.
1.09. Thank you.
Yep. And sorry, can I just check? You mentioned Forestry, but I don't see anything online except for the tree declaration that we ourselves submitted.
Okay, there was correspondence from Forestry. I'm not sure it represents. We have staff report from Urban Forestry. Yes, we do.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that wasn't posted online. I'm looking at the AIC website at the moment. It doesn't seem to be listed there.
Perhaps you could bring up the Forestry staff report, please, from 25 August. There it is.
Okay, so we're just subject to item number 2 to apply. But that's fine.
Okay then. Any further questions for the applicant? Yeah, Ms. Hayes.
Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
In reading the letter from number 58, there was some suggestion in there that there had been discussions between your client and the owner. And there seemed to be some suggestions that something was going to be altered. Is there some amendments being made? And if so, do they affect the variances at all?
No, there's no amendments to the scope of the work itself. It's still within the same footprint that we proposed with this application. There's just been some talks with some of the neighbors about lighting and ways we could kind of help with light passing to their property. So there's been some talks about doing skylights or other kind of more reflective materials that might help in that case. So that's discussions that are ongoing, but it doesn't necessarily change our scope of work.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, panel, if there are no further questions, I think we could take this one into committee. maybe moving it. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
I'm happy to bring a motion. I think that this is a sensitive proposal, and I really commend the applicant for retaining the kind of side cutout with this just remains a one-story portion. I think that goes a long way to breaking up the volume of this addition and keeping all of the massing within the footprint and basically in the roof line. I think that there are no negative impacts coming from this application, and I think the variance is minor. So I move for approval subject to urban forestry condition 2.
That is seconded by Ms. Hayes. So it is moved and seconded to approve the application subject to forestry. Those in favor, show of hands. And it is moved or voted unanimously to carry the motion and to approve the application subject to forestry. And we move on to number 24. Number 30, Goth Avenue. On this application we have before us applicant's materials, a covering letter from the agent, and plus we have something in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, something like 35 previous decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Okay, and it looks, moderator, like we simply have the agent and the owners registered. Okay. Agent, I'll ask you to join us, please, by stating your name.
My name is Shahid Nanawati, and I'm the agent for 30 GOUGH Avenue.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel members. We now have the applicant with us. Do any of you request a presentation? Do you have questions you'd like to put to the applicant? My question to the applicant is, let's look at the actual minor variances sought. And applicant, I'm going to ask you, there are 5 minor variances sought. Which, if any, of those 5 are existing conditions?
The existing conditions are, number 1 would be the setbacks. We are not changing the setbacks at all. At the side, the building has been maintained just the way it is. At the front too, we are not changing anything.
Okay.
The height is the height as well.
You just have to tell me which ones are existing, so you can say number. Just identify them by number. Which ones are existing? Which ones are not existing?
Okay. So it's basically the setback one, which is the item number 2. Yes, sir. Item number 2 would be existing as such. So the main setback at the sides are not being changed at all, and the main FSI that we are taking now is 0.86. So that's the main request that we have. Did I answer your question?
I'm just processing here for a moment. So number 1 and number 2 are both existing conditions. Number 3.
No, no. The number 1 is at 69 at the moment, and I'm requesting for 0.86.
Okay, so number 1 is not existing. That you're seeking to go to 0.86 there.
That's right, sir.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, we can move toward a motion panel. Ms. Hayes.
Thank you. I just would like to make one request of the applicant. It's not it's not a requirement, it's a request. In future, I find it very helpful as a committee member. When an applicant just gives us a dump of previous committee of adjustment decisions with no context, it's very difficult to go through those and try to, you know, ascertain what it is you're trying to tell me. So certainly it's great to see whatever submissions you want to make, but in future, if you could provide a summary of what you're trying to demonstrate by giving us all those decisions, I would find that helpful. Just a suggestion, not a demand. With respect to the application, I believe what's being requested is indeed minor. This street has a lot of varying architecture. Some of the properties, you know, have laneways access to them, and there's a recent big build with a big laneway suite in close proximity to this application. I think that what's being proposed is indeed minor, it's not out of character, and I would move to support the application with no conditions.
Is there a second? It is seconded by Mr. Reed. It is moved and seconded to approve the application. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And there's a unanimous vote to carry the motion and also to approve the application. Thank you. And panel moves along to number 25, 953 St. Claren's Avenue. On 953 St. Claren's, we have before us just one item, and that is the materials submitted by the applicant. So I will ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Eddie Perez. I'm here on behalf of the owners, and we're at 537 Rogers Road.
Thank you very much. And I just want to check, moderator, with Vicente Garcia as to whether he's in opposition, in support, or what. We'll see. So I'll ask Vicente Garcia to come on and join the meeting, please.
Hello. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Vicente Garcia, and I live across the street at 934 St. Claren's Avenue, and I am in opposition of the 5 proposed changes to the variance.
Thank you very much. Okay. If you'll stand by, then we're going to hear a presentation from the application, from the applicant on the presentation. So back to you, Eddie.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes to present your application.
Okay, we're proposing, right now it's a 1-story dwelling. We're adding an addition to the back, and we're adding a 2-story in and 2 stories on top of the existing, so it's going to be a 3-story dwelling. 3-story dwellings are very common in the area. There's a lot of 3 stories in this area. And we're also, with the FSI, we're slightly over. We're allowed 0.6 because it's on top. If it was a rear addition, you'd be allowed 0.69. But we're proposing 0.79, which is modest, and there's many more that are in the area that higher than ours. We're asking for heights, which is 10 meters. We're asking for 10.41. And also we're asking for the side wall 7.5. We're asking 9.96. If you look in the scape of the area of the 3-story houses, there are houses that are just as high and even higher than ours. So ours is a flat roof. There's ones with pitch roofs with the 3rd story. So, and I feel that the variances that we're requesting are minor in nature and they meet the 4 tests.
Thank you very much. Let's move now to the person who's registered and is standing by, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia?
Thank you.
I understand you have to...
Yes, hi.
Go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to address each one of the variances one by one and express my concerns. Before I do that, I just want to let you know that in conversations with other neighbors, this is by no means representation at all, but the neighbors across the street, they're elderly immigrants, blue-collar immigrants who don't understand the ins and outs of online meetings and committee of adjustments. So I've spoken to them and they have expressed certain opposition. However, due to their nature of being elderly and not having the know-how to participate in this committee, they're not able to be here. However, I'm here, but I will speak only on my behalf. I will speak clearly on what impacts my property across the street. So in terms of variance number 1, the setback required, it's going to be approximately 12%. Not really that much of not really that impactful to me, except that I'm concerned because I am on a hill. We live on a hill, and I am downhill from the neighbor. I feel that less absorption of water will create more rainwater running down into my house, and my house is actually semi-detached, and the basement is at grade level. Being at grade level, all I have is a little bit of grade dislocation to push the water away. Otherwise, when it rains, only my garage door holds the water. So by having that approved, I will have more rainwater coming in into the front of my house, increasing the risk of flooding to my basement. So that's in opposition to number 1. In opposition to number 2, the floor space, right now it's a very quaint, turn of the century, beautifully decorated and beautifully designed bungalow that is going to be converted into a 3-story high. It will be I don't know what the intent of the usage of the building is. Right now, the basement of that house is rented, and that causes problems for us. Causes problems because the more tenants we have, there is more demand for parking for spaces that are limited. There's no parking across the street in the houses, so we have to park on the street, and sometimes we have to park very far away from our house. On days when we have to change parking side, there are parked cars on both sides of the road, impeding access for emergency vehicles. In addition, I believe that a 33% increase in density is not minor. I think taking that from a very small bungalow to a massive 3-story palace will be a large increase. And if the intention is to be a rental, I think it should be very clear that that's rental. In opposition of number 3, also we believe that, not we, it's me speaking, it's a 30% increase on the rear yard, and my concern is again the water absorption from the natural grade, and that's going to create more water coming to the bottom of the street where I am. In opposition to number 4, I can only speak from a shade perspective. It will impact the little tiny bungalow that sits right north of this new property. It will have a lot of shade. The snow will not melt on the roof. It will be detrimental to that roof and detrimental to the hydro bills of the elderly owner who lives on that house. However, I have no impact on that. And given that it's a flat roof, I had not seen the design. I thought at some point there would be some overhang of the roof, but there's no overhang. I was concerned about encroaching on that person's property, but again, I'm not opposed to that personally. Just speaking from the person that would be impacted. And finally, on item number 5, the height of the building, it's a 32% increase, and the house, I don't know if you have a visual, the house is already sitting on a mountain. There is a mountain where the house is, where those houses are, and they're very high. So that would impact the enjoyment of my property. Yes, it is very high. So I'm across the street. So how would that impact my property? Well, I would get a lot less sunlight. I would get a lot less sky to look at, and I would be just looking directly at that big massive house. So I do thank you for your consideration, and I thank you for hearing my concerns. That's really all I have to say for now.
Thank you very much. Let's see if the panel has questions for you. Panel members? No. Seeing none, we'll go back to the applicant now, who will have an opportunity to rebut. And applicant, the things we'll ask you to focus on in your rebuttal, there is concern that the nature of your proposal will cause increased runoff from your property site to adjacent properties, specifically of concern to that of the speaker. There is a concern about pressure on parking spaces for rental units. So do you have a plan in that regard? And also a concern that because your house is already sitting quite high on a high site, the extra height will serve to exacerbate loss of sunlight to properties across the street, specifically again that of the applicant, or that of the speaker. So I'll ask you to address those specific issues in your rebuttal.
We'll start off with the rainwater. The rainwater, as per building code, we're gonna make it all drain on our property. And as you can see from the previous area that the committee member put up, you can see that the houses pretty well on both sides are on a hill. So when the water drains, it's gonna go onto the street. It will not go into anybody's basement. In the fact, the way the houses are situated, it's very rare that it'll happen. The other thing you asked about was about the apartment in the basement. The apartment in the basement was rented, but this owner is not living there at this time. He's gonna renovate the house to live in there with his family. He has 3 kids, and he not gonna be renting the basement anymore. So if you look at the basement floor plan, there is no renting unit there. It's gonna be for just a single family moving forward. And as per the height, the neighbors across the street are on hills as well, so the height won't impact them whatsoever. And if you look on the streetscape of the whole area, there's many, many third-story houses with the same heights as that we have. So we're within and we meet the 4 tests. I feel that our project is minimal and won't have a great impact on anybody. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Panel members, questions for the applicant? Okay. Very good. In that case, I think we can take the application into committee, maybe move directly to a motion. Panel members, anyone ready with the motion? Mr. Reed?
I just have a quick comment before. If my only concern relates to the 3rd-story deck at the rear, and the existing 1-story house to the north would be impacted the most because this addition extends far behind, and so I would just suggest that perhaps there be, if this was to be approved, that there be on the north side of that 3rd-story deck, that there be privacy screening.
Good point. Okay. I think Mr. Reed has a motion in mind and has taken that into consideration. So, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Nimrod, and thanks. I want to thank the neighbor across the street. I think he did a really good job outlining his concerns specifically to him, and I want to commend him for that. I do think this application is a good one, and I think on my first view of it, the depth was a bit of a concern, but looking at the lotting of this and the location of the houses on this specific block, there's a lot of variation, and I think this application has kind of split the difference between the house north of it and south of it, and I think that's a reasonable solution. And stepping back the 3rd story as well in the rear, I think goes to soften some of the impact in the backyard. So I move to approve this project subject to Nimrod's suggestion that the 3rd-story deck have privacy screening on the north side.
Is there a second? It is seconded by Mr. Salomon. Moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion is carried. The application is approved with the condition that privacy screening be installed on the north side of the 3rd-story balcony. Thank you. We move on to number 26. 93 Waverly Road. 93 Waverly. Before us we have applicant's materials, email correspondence from transportation, and 4 form letters in support, 38, 91, 95, and 97 Waverly Road. And we'll now ask the agent to join the meeting, please, by stating his name.
Mr. Chairman, it's Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect Incorporated. I'm representing the previous owners of this property who sold 93 Waverly to new owners who are anxious to make sure that this matter is put behind us, excuse me. My clients inherited a house at number 93 that had a front porch which they renovated along with the rest of the home, both interior and exterior. And you might see from the site plan, but certainly from the survey, that the dimension between the wall of the house, the north wall of the house, and the property line is only approximately 6'6". There is a right-of-way then beside it. And I don't know if you can turn it 90 degrees by any chance. The right-of-way allows access onto the neighbor's property, etc. The neighbor to the north. So although there was a garage in the back of the property, it's no longer used, hasn't been, because you can't get down the driveway. So it's basically a storage shed. So if we can go to the site plan, please. Everyone is always parked on the front of the property, and the photographs of the street, which I think are very telling, show that this is a very common situation given the very small front yards of the houses on Waverly. And one of the variances we have, of course, is the stairs off the porch. Given the height of the porch and the grade, there's no way but to encroach slightly onto city property with those steps. I believe if you went back to the original survey, the stairs there encroached as well, to my recollection. Could you bring up the photographs, please, of the parking conditions? Photographs of the parking on the street. Should be a file of quite a few photos. So I have them on my screen. They were sent in. 2 rounds of them were sent in. They are on the system. I did check it. At any rate, there are probably 15 photographs, all of which show front yard parking, stairs encroaching, parking pads, minimal landscaping, all of which is because of the small front yard that we have here on Waverly. So we're essentially grandfathering what has been in place for many, many, many years. And it came up obviously because my clients were trying to close a permit. They had renovated their house, as I said earlier, and the new deck in the same position as the old deck, and the new stairs encroached. Of course, that was flagged along with parking, and so here we are trying to close this off and I suppose grandfather the existing conditions. I note that transportation has decided not to comment. There's nothing from planning, as I understand. We do have neighborhood support.
Excuse me, transportation did comment.
Well, I beg your pardon. Could we bring that up, please?
This is the 11th of May email from transportation.
Can staff bring that letter up?
It's coming now, yes.
Well, it's, all I can say is an existing condition for probably forever, because although cars have become smaller, 6'6" is not a legal driveway. And one of my staff mentioned that they had discussed that with both planning and transportation, and my understanding was that neither one of them had any issues. You cannot get down the driveway. You could if you completely encroached over the right-of-way and onto the neighbor's property, but even then, it's not a legal driveway. So the space between the north wall of the house and the property line at 6'6" essentially makes the old garage in the backyard an accessory building, which it was determined to be some time ago. And the fact that transportation says what they're saying, there's nowhere else to park. We want to go back to the site plan, please. There we go. Okay, so this is the condition that when I first met my clients, the car was parked exactly as per this, with no way to get down the way. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I truly think this is simply a case of a neighborhood where they have small front yards. Just about everybody in this world has a car. One car is all that's requested here, and we've asked for your approval on this.
Okay, we do have a question for you, Mr. Salomon. Go ahead.
Yes, so we're looking at the site plan, and I see the image of the car, and then there's a dashed line running along the front. Is that the property line?
That is correct. That is the street line, the front property line.
So I think what transportation is saying is the car is not parking on the private property, it's parking on the city boulevard, and so the zoning process isn't the right process to get a permit to park on this public boulevard.
Well, we can't do anything at this point because the car won't fit down the driveway. I'm not sure how many times I can say it, but even if there was no porch or only half a porch, you can tell by the scale of the car, there is no room. Transportation, as I know, as an architect over 35 years, objects to almost everything. And I understand that this is a car parking on city municipal boulevard, but there's nothing that can be done. Otherwise, this house would have no parking whatsoever.
Okay, I'd like to.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Excuse me. I want to just seek some guidance here from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. Can you give us any guidance? I know that the committee deals with minor variances to the bylaw, but in this case, transportation is citing the municipal code. Are we outside of our authority in this area?
Transportation will govern things within the boulevard, and sometimes you do have parking spaces that straddle the property line, and they're the ones that will deal with whether or not you can get a parking permit for a pad or not. So in this case, the variances is really just to have either no parking, or as the number one speaks to, is that the parking spot is just partially in the front yard. So ultimately it's transportation services that will say yay or nay to any proper parking in the boulevard.
Okay, so if we were to minor variance number one here is what I'm thinking about, and probably about a quarter of the parking spaces on the private property, and maybe 3/4 are on the boulevard. So we don't necessarily have to remove that minor variance. We could vote on it, but transportation will still have.
If I may say, since it says in this case the parking spot will be partially located in the front yard, as
Yeah.
for the
Yeah,
Deputy
okay.
Secretary's Treasurer,
Yeah.
it makes sense to me that that's covering what we're trying to do. It's not a full space. We're not supposed to park in the front, but it does note that the parking spot is partially located. May I ask staff, can you not find the photographs that were in the file?
Let's just take a minute and see if they can.
I just have one question while they try to find those. Have you made an application for parking?
No, we were waiting on the Committee of Adjustment decision here. And then it's up to the new owners to make that application. My clients no longer own the property, and the understanding is the new owners who have already moved in about a month ago will be making that application.
I just have one other question while they're trying to find those pictures with respect to the landscaping, and I know this is not on the private property, but the others. The plan suggests that it's all paved. Is it all paved? Other
Yes.
than the flower boxes, so there was not an opportunity. Okay. That's
Well,
fine.
there is a small section of planting on the south side as a buffer to the neighbor.
Yeah, but they chose to hardscape most of the front area up to the sidewalk.
That's correct, they did, and that was partly because of the location of the stairs and the location of the only place that you could park a car. So, because the stairs would require a walkway down from the stairs to the sidewalk.
No, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. So, if I may say, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman or staff. So if you flip through these are on Waverly, and they basically show the same kind of conditions where people have nowhere else to park, but obviously on the municipal boulevard. There's a two-car, a lot of paving, minimal landscaping. Kenilworth is one street to the west, I believe. Similar conditions, small lots, nowhere to park. So the bottom line is we're not creating anything that isn't clearly evident in the neighborhood as the only means. You can't park on the street overnight, so you have to have a way to park on the boulevard.
Okay. Any further questions for the applicant? In that case, let's take the application into committee. And perhaps, are we ready for a motion on the, Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Okay, having looked at the area and now supported by the pictures we just saw, it is clearly evident that there is many examples of parking in front of the front wall. So the variance with respect to allowing a space partially in front, I don't have a concern with, and transportation will have to deal with the formal application for the spot. I think the landscape variance, given where the property line lands on this property, is not unreasonable and is certainly not uncharacteristic. And I believe the variances, all the variances being requested, are not out of character, and I would be prepared to support them. And that would be my motion.
Thank you.
No conditions.
Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Salomon. So moved and seconded to approve. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And the motion is carried. Unanimous vote. The application is approved. And panel moves along to number 27. 106 Jeffrey Street. On 106 Jeffrey, we have before us applicant's materials submitted, covering letter from the agent from March the 15th, plus recent submission, which is correspondence in support. from Eric Gordon at 104 Jeffrey, received on August 27. And here I wanted to check with the moderator. Moderator, we have the agent I see listed here. Then there's an individual, Neil Mohan, who's not identified in terms of owner, support, opposed, interest. Do we know anything about that person?
No. Maybe
okay.
you can.
We'll find out. Very good.
Mr. Chair, the application on the screen indicates that Neil Mohan is shown as an owner.
He's shown as owner. Thank you very much for that. That helps. Okay. Yes, it does. So he's an owner, and that answers that question. Good. Okay, then let's ask the agent to join us by stating your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Delarzak, and I'm the agent for this address, 106 Jeffrey Street.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you. Okay. Panel members on 106 Jeffrey. Would you like to hear a presentation? Do you have questions for the agent? No, hearing none. We can then move into committee and go to a motion if someone is ready. Mr. Solomon, go ahead.
I'm happy to move forward a motion. This is extremely small. The addition that's proposed, I think, is like 5 square meters, replacing an existing bathroom with a slightly larger one, and I believe the variances are minor, and I would move approval with no conditions.
Thank you. It is seconded by Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to approve without condition. Those in favor? Show of hands, please. Unanimous vote. The motion is carried and the application is approved without condition. Panel moves along to number 28, 280 Boone Avenue. Here on 280 Boone, we have applicant's materials. There's an arborist report from P&A Urban Forestry. And we also have late arriving materials. For example, a covering letter from the agent dated August 30, and 28 form letters in support from occupants at a variety of addresses on Boone Avenue, Earls Court Avenue, Morrison Avenue, and Nairn Avenue. And these received up to and including August 31st. So that's 28 form letters in support. And on 28 Boone, we will ask the agent to join us in the meeting, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Marin Zabzuni at 1140 the Queensway.
Good afternoon to you. Panel members, would you care to hear a presentation? Do you have questions on this application? Okay, we don't have any need for a presentation, and I hear no questions. Is anyone on the panel ready to move forward to a motion? Mr. Reed.
I'm happy to bring a motion. I think there are many houses on this street that are already quite long, and this is even shorter than the bulk of them. I think being on a corner lot gives this property a little bit more breathing room. I was slightly concerned about the front yard soft landscaping variance, but that's really just a fractional portion of the site that we're talking about. And I think inputting a basement unit is a positive thing for this neighborhood. So I think in all the variances being requested are minor and don't have negative impacts on the neighbors, and so I move to approve with no conditions.
Is there a second to that? Yes, there is. Ms. Hayes. Thereby moved and seconded to approve motion. For a vote on that motion, show of hands, please. Those in favor? And those in favor vote, it is a unanimous vote in favor to approve, and the application is so approved. We move along to number 30, number 29 having been deferred. Number 30 is 58, Aldwych. And on 58 Aldwych, we have before us simply the materials submitted by the applicant. So, we'll ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hi there, my name is Deborah Mesher. I'm the designer and agent for this application.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Questions, panel members? Yes, Mr. Salomon, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether the applicant consulted with the two adjacent neighbors.
Yes, I did hear that both neighbors were in support. One in particular, on the east side, was in support of the application. They didn't volunteer to submit any emails of support, but they did have a few discussions all together, and we're good to go.
Thank you. Okay then, if there are no further questions, is anyone ready to move to a motion? Mr. Salomon.
Yeah. This is a very small, narrow lot. I think it's like 16 feet frontage. The addition that's proposed is small, although it does extend far behind the adjacent houses, but we don't have any concerns raised by the adjacent owners, so I believe the variances are minor, and I would move approval with no conditions.
Yeah. Second for that motion. It is seconded by Mr. Reed. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that is a unanimous vote. The application is so approved. So at that stage, we've been back about 2 hours. I'm going to call a brief recess of 10 minutes, and then we'll come back to finish off this segment. So 10-minute recess. We'll all be back at 12 minutes past 4. Thank you.
Hi everyone, we're going to recess, but I just want to know that this YouTube stream is going to end and a new YouTube stream will be available. It'll be PM Part 2.